We are definitely now into the darkest part of the year in the UK. Our current dawn time here is about 8:30 in the morning, and on cloudy and gloomy days it can definitely feel a lot later than that. Even when we have blue skies like we have today, the position of our small holding means that the sun doesn't really get over the hills for at least another hour. And the days right now are just feeling so short. It is not long afternoon when you can really feel the day getting darker again. By 2 o'clock, it really starts to feel like the start of the evening, and the sun is currently going down at about 3:45, so particularly on a rainy day, by 4 o'clock, it can be completely pitch black. Now, I would not class myself as someone who loves the winter. I have struggled with this season for many years. I dislike the really gloomy weather that we get so much of, and whilst I don't mind the short days quite as much, not seeing the sun for sometimes weeks on end can get really draining. So this week my plan is to try and make the most of the cold and the dark, or at the very least just to cope with this darker season. So if you are also struggling with the winter and the dark days where you are, then please join me this week and we will see if we can make the most of it. Now, one of the things that has made a huge difference for me in learning to enjoy winter a little bit more has actually been Instagram. Now, perhaps that is a strange statement to make, so let me explain. When I first joined Instagram, I was very heavily involved in the book and writing communities, and to a certain extent I do still follow those. But I started over the years to broaden my interest into other categories, and I followed a lot of people who were very into rural life, slow living, you know, the kind of accounts with lots of home baking and living in cabins in the woods. The first thing that struck me following a lot of these accounts was how much everybody loved autumn. The internet is obsessed with autumn, and for a long time I couldn't really see the appeal. For me, the height of the year was definitely spring and summer, and I honestly just wanted to hide for the rest of it. But spending time in these online communities allowed me to start to see the joy and beauty in autumn, and that has spilled over into winter too. Now, this isn't always easy. It's all very well looking at beautiful pictures of autumn foliage in New England, but the northwest of England, where I live, does not follow the same weather patterns. Winter here is very grey, very wet, very dreary, and it can be very difficult to find an innate beauty in that when really all you want is to just see a few hours of sunshine. I have really spent a lot of time cultivating my interest in the beauty at this time of year. It is a time that I love to get out with my camera, which is another hobby that has really allowed me to hone in on the beauty at this time of year and all the little details. Obviously, things like snow and frost can be very photogenic, but I also love taking pictures of low cloud over the hills or raindrops hanging off tree branches. These are things we see a lot more of in this part of the world than snow, but they are definitely beautiful in their own way. And focusing on the delights that are here and now around me every day has really allowed me to shift my perspective on winter. By the end of the season, I will definitely still be longing for spring, but there are a lot of things to look forward to along the way. One of the biggest things that helps me survive the winter is writing and creativity in general. When the weather is terrible and I can't do much outside, that is at least an excuse to get cozy inside and spend time on my books. For anyone who is new here, I am a fantasy and science fiction writer. I'm self-published. I have always got multiple stories on the go. At the moment, I'm working on a couple of different projects. One is the continuation of a high fantasy series, and the third book will be coming out early next year. And I'm also working on a much bigger project, which I'm also hoping to kick off in 2024. Now, on that particular story, I had quite a big revelation last night. I was making some notes and working through some world building details, and some strands that have been in the back of my mind for years in some cases suddenly all came together and made perfect sense. It was quite an incredible moment, and I really love it when all these disparate ideas come together and suddenly make sense. It is one of the most rewarding things about writing fantasy, because I'm often working with huge casts of characters, very large worlds, or in this case a universe, and very large timescales as well. But occasionally it all just pulls together in ways I hadn't foreseen, and that is an incredible feeling. But it's not the big revelations that sustain me through the dark months. Really, it is the daily practice of writing or outlining or whatever it is I'm working on. Winters here can feel so long and tedious and drawn out. But if I'm working on something that is not affected by the weather and the rest of my life, I'm able to make a little bit of progress every day, record that progress, and by the end of the winter, I can really see how much I've accomplished. And I know a lot of people in the slow and seasonal living communities talk about resting and going inwards in the winter. For me, the writing is all part of that. I do treat it very seriously, and it is in some ways another job, but it is a job that is a lot more restorative to me. If I'm feeling anxious, I find writing very calming. If my mind is buzzing and I'm really stressed by the day job or other things that are happening, the writing really allows me to focus on only my created worlds and just takes my mind off anything that's bothering me. And it is just so rewarding to see something that you have created, whether that is a finished story or a video or a piece of knitting, whatever it is you like to work on, whatever your medium is. Using the dark months of the year to create is so incredibly rewarding. So even though there are sometimes days in winter when I just wish it would stop raining so I can go outside, I do try to make the most of all the time spent inside. I try to write as much as possible. I try to work on my craft. I try to get my publishing schedule ahead for the much busier summer, and above all, I just try to enjoy the process. I am self-published, so within reason I can just work on whatever is calling me in that moment. I love the act of writing pretty much more than anything else I do in my life, and winter is the perfect time to make the most of that. Just come in from working outside and it is really cold out there today, but there is a little bit of sunshine and blue sky, which makes it very nice to be outside. And being outside actually is one of the main ways I survive the winter. Now, it perhaps sounds a bit counterintuitive, because when it's very cold and particularly when the weather is bad, the last thing you want to do is go outside. But many studies have shown how good for us it is to be outside, getting some daylight, particularly in the morning, and just being outside when it's cold, in nature, if we can manage it, just does us so much good. And I can really feel that when I spend time outside. I might complain about how cold it is in the moment, but it makes me feel a lot more awake, a lot more refreshed, and I just have a lot more energy when I do come back into the warm. Now at the moment we are working outside, we're back in the barn because it's not raining. Today has been a day of taking apart some stone walls, ready to put some new lintels in, and we've also been putting together some drain pipes. So we are at a point where it feels like we're making some good progress, and we can definitely see changes in the barn week by week. Doing things like putting drain pipes together and putting them in the ground is perhaps not very exciting, but it is a major step towards the barn being habitable, because we can't get any proper solid floors down until the drain pipes are in. So we're making quite good progress. But of course, apart from working outside, I do love to go walking in winter. Now that's not always the easiest because there is both the weather to contend with and a lot of the land around here turns very wet and muddy at this time of year. But I think walking out in the cold makes me feel even more energized and alive than working outside does. So I think that is the next thing to do. To celebrate the fact that it is Friday afternoon and work is done for the week, I have just been doing some baking. I have made the dough for some fruit tea cakes. They are just rising at the moment and they will go into the oven in half an hour or so. I definitely find that I do more involved cooking and baking during the winter. Partly this is looking for something to do with my time when I'm inside, and also I think I crave comfort foods a lot more. I bake all year round, but in winter I will make things that take longer. I will make a lot of different breads, and anything that feels comforting tends to be quite high up my list of recipes at this time of year. Now, for me personally, this isn't because I actually love cooking or baking. I don't mind it, but if there was a way to get home cooked food and home baked bread and to buy it at a reasonable price, I would probably just do that. But having the kitchen filled with the smells of baking, spending time cozied up at home with something you have made yourself, these are all very comforting, reassuring things when it is cold and dark outside. And to be honest, at this time of year, I just really like eating. I think the cold definitely inspires us to eat heavier, denser foods, and I think I perhaps pay more attention to what I'm eating in winter. I'm less likely to just pick up something really quick that takes no preparation and instead to make something that takes several hours of cooking. And the tea cakes are an example of that. Although I will say that I do actually make the dough in my bread maker. That is actually my one baking tip for you. I have problems with my hands, which makes kneading bread really quite painful, but there are a huge number of different bread doughs you can make in a bread maker, and then you can take the dough out, let it prove, and then bake it. I frequently do tea cakes this way. I also do cinnamon buns. I have done brioche, but particularly if you have something like arthritis or carpal tunnel or something like that, it really does take all the hard work out of making bread. So I will show you the tea cakes when they are finished, and I am very much looking forward to eating them. It is another extremely grey winter's day, although at least it is not raining. We have had several days of heavy rain and there's more in the forecast for later in the week. It is extremely unlikely we are going to get a white Christmas this year. It is, as usual, probably going to be a drizzly one. Now, I wanted to talk about a few physical items that make my life better in winter. One, fairly obviously, because it has featured in every one of my videos recently, is of course this wood burning stove. For a number of reasons, I probably wouldn't choose a wood burner or an open fire in a more modern house. We are unlikely to have one when we finish the barn, but in the caravan where we literally have no other source of heating, it has been an absolute lifesaver. The caravan also gets very damp, so having a very dry source of heat has been fantastic. In the same vein, another couple of indispensable items in our caravan life are a dehumidifier and also an electric blanket on the bed. Again, because it can get so cold and damp in the caravan, getting into a bed that has been warmed up with an electric blanket is absolutely blissful. If you live in a cold house or if you just don't particularly want to heat your bedroom, I highly recommend one. Now, a few other smaller items. First of all, we have vitamin D. I believe it is recommended in the UK to take vitamin D between about October and March because we don't get enough sunlight really for half of the year for our bodies to make enough vitamin D on their own. So my family and I take one of these every day all winter. We've been really good at taking them this year. We've definitely made it part of our routine. I think if you were going to take one vitamin or supplement in the UK in winter, I think this is the one to go for. Can I tell you I feel different for taking it? Not really, but I am hoping it is doing some good. I definitely can feel the effects of these two though. Whilst I was saying it is very damp in the UK at this time of year, I still get very dry skin, particularly on my hands. I'm working with my hands a lot, I'm either doing a lot of cleaning or I'm working outside, and I'm quite prone to both psoriasis and eczema on my hands, which I can tell you if it gets out of hand, no pun intended, is incredibly painful. I think because you have so many nerves and blood vessels in your hands, if they get injured in any way, it is absolutely agonizing. So my secret weapon here is this Neutrogena Norwegian formula hand cream. I really like the fast absorbing one because I am impatient. I will say I don't love the smell of this. They changed the formula last year and I'm not too keen on the new perfume. Having said that, it does absorb quickly as it says, and it's incredibly effective. My hands feel much better this year than they have in previous years, and I try and use this every single day. For times when my skin conditions worsen though, I switch to this one. This is Skin Relief from Aveeno. It is very thick and creamy. I wouldn't cover my entire hands in it, but when I've got particularly patches of dry skin, I put some of this on. It is very soothing, it works really effectively. This one doesn't smell of anything, which is my preference. Both of these moisturisers as well, although not the cheapest, can easily be picked up in British supermarkets. Now, my final product to show you is Olbas oil. I never know how many people have heard of Olbas oil, but I am definitely a firm convert. It's pretty common to catch a lot of colds and winter viruses at this time of year. We have a daughter at primary school and she seems to come home with a new bug every week or so. Olbas oil is a decongestant. It is mostly eucalyptus oil and menthol. It smells amazing. I've been using this all my life and I find the smell incredibly comforting, and this absolutely saves me when I'm feeling under the weather. So those are a few of my winter favourites. If you have any similar products to mention, please put them down in the comments because I'm always looking for ways to make winter more comfortable. I've talked a lot in this video about ways to improve both physical and mental health at this time of year. The creativity, getting outside, trying to see some daylight, and then of course things like hand creams and electric blankets. What I will say though is that there is no single activity or product that will 100% make this time of year bearable. If you dislike winter, you will always have days when it just gets too much, and lighting a few candles or baking or picking up a book just isn't going to solve anything. The best we can do, I have found, is to enjoy the season as much as possible, and when you just do not feel like enjoying anything, to use tactics like these to try and make winter as bearable as possible. And that is what I'm going to be reminding myself of as the winter continues. We have got another week to go until Christmas as I record this, so there is an awful lot of winter still to go. It will not properly start to feel like spring here until at least April, and some years it is May before we get any warmth at all. So I am bracing myself for the season to come. I hope you too are able to find a little bit of joy in this winter, and I will see you next time.